A few days before Christmas vacation began at my high school, Elvis had his Uncle Travis call my mother. He asked my mother's permission for me to come down to spend Christmas with Elvis and his family. Travis and his family lived in a little house that had stood for many years behind Graceland. Travis told my mother I would be staying with them. He said that Elvis wanted to assure her that he and his family would take good care of me. Mom and Uncle Travis discussed the details of my trip, and I would be taking the train the following evening. I was so excited I could barely stand it. I flew up the stairs, stormed through my closet, trying to decide what clothes to take to Memphis. When I arrived at Memphis, Uncle Travis and Billy were waiting at the train station. "Well, it looks like things worked out pretty good," said Uncle Travis. I got in the back seat of the car with my suitcase, and we drove out to Graceland. Uncle Vesta waved at us through the gate, and crowds of fans were standing there watching and taking pictures. Someone took a picture of me smiling out the car window. There was a big sign in the front of the house that you could see all the way down the road. It read, "Merry Christmas, y'all, Elvis," with a big Santa Claus and prancing reindeers sailing through the trees. Uncle Travis pointed at the Santa and said, "Elvis loves all this kind of stuff." The car stopped in front of the steps leading up to the small front porch of the little wooden house that he and Lorraine lived in behind Graceland. Lorraine showed me to my bedroom where I could leave my things. Then we went into the kitchen and had some fresh coffee. They made me feel like family. "How are Elvis's mom and dad doing?" I asked. Lorraine peeked out the kitchen window at the yard behind Graceland. "They usually take a long walk every morning. They like to walk around. There they are now. You can catch them. They'd be glad to see you." I ran outside in time to go into the house with them. "Arlene, honey, come on in and have breakfast with me," Mrs. Presley said. "Vernon's got some work to do. You can keep me company." She gave me a big hug. "Elvis will be tickled to know you got down here." Gladys started pulling out pots and pans and plates and set a little table for us. "I'm sure glad your mother decided to let you come down and be with us for Christmas. We're going to have a good time this year." "I don't want to be anywhere else," I said. She put on some bacon and cracked some eggs in a skillet. Alberta, the maid, was not there yet. Mrs. Presley looked like she enjoyed being able to get in the kitchen again. Then she set out some big plates of potatoes, eggs, and bacon. "Oh, honey, I'm afraid I got the bacon a little on the burnt side. I hope it's not too crisp for you." "Oh, no, it's fine for me." She poured hot coffee for both of us and then sat down with me to eat. She pushed the sugar bowl and the cream pitcher to me. "I remember how you doctor up your coffee," she said. "Vernon said one time you ought to see the way Arlene even puts lots of sugar on her grits." I spent most of the day with Mrs. Presley. The rest of the house was dressed up for Christmas in a warm, wonderful way. Red holiday curtains were up on all the windows at Elvis's request, Mrs. Presley said. "And he loves to have all these fresh flowers everywhere, especially the roses." There was a big Christmas tree that nearly touched the ceiling in the dining room. It was white flocked, and it revolved as Christmas music came out of it. Fans down at the gate bought Elvis gifts all year long. At Christmas, the flow of the gifts at the gate turned into a flood. Guards kept bringing up things to the house, and all through the day and night, these gifts were added to the growing pile of gifts under the big revolving tree. "The things that don't go under the tree in the dining room go up in the attic," Mrs. Presley said, "or Elvis sends them on to the children or poor folks in the hospital around here. He likes to share with people who don't have anything otherwise." She walked over to the dining room window and looked down at the fan standing at the gate. "I feel for those people who wait down there to see Elvis. Elvis does too. A lot of times he walks down there and stays to talk to them for the longest time. He'll try to answer all their questions and sign all the autographs they want. They still don't want him to leave. They beg him to stay and talk some more. I just wish we could ask every one of those people to come up here and spend Christmas with us. Elvis wants to make everybody happy. It's a hard thing to try." In the late afternoon, Elvis woke up and called downstairs for his mother. Elvis, the dentist's office called again. They said to tell you it was time for your checkup. She paused and listened, then said, "Son, you need to go ahead and make that appointment. Your teeth are important. Promise me you'll call them." Gladys hung up the phone. "He's coming down for his breakfast. I didn't tell him you were here. I figured you'd be his little surprise." Elvis came down the stairs into the kitchen. He gave his mama a good morning kiss, and she said, "See who's here." "Well, looky here." He gave me a hug and a kiss hello, and then led me to the table to sit with him while he ate breakfast. Then he called the dentist just as his mother had asked him, and told him he would be there later on. After he had finished eating his breakfast, he took me by the hand to show me around the rest of the house.
That's the tree we're using.
He glanced at the pile of gifts under the tree and at some of the cards hanging near the front door. He sampled a piece of white divinity fudge in a bowl that was in the hallway, and then we settled down at the piano. There was music playing throughout the house. It was all Christmas music and spirituals. Elvis listened to it, picked up the tune, and quietly played along, singing softly. Then he got up and walked across the room to a vase of roses and picked one out and brought it back to me. He sat down and continued to play and sing. After a while he got up and wandered back through the house to the kitchen. "Did you bring your blue jeans with you?" he asked. "Oh, sure," I said. "Want to run upstairs to the dressing room and put them on after a while?" "Oh, they're over at Uncle Travis's place. Let me go over there for a while and then I'll be back." He gave me a big hug and kiss. "I'm glad you're here." "Me too," I said.
Thank you.
I walked back to Uncle Travis's and Lorraine's house and put the rose in a little vase in the room that they showed me. I freshened up, changed my clothes, and began to talk to Aunt Lorraine. "I'd offer you supper," said Aunt Lorraine, "but I think you'll be eating with Elvis." "I think it's going to be corn dogs. It always is at the skating rink." After I got changed, I walked back to the house and went down to the den, looking for people. It was nearly 11 o'clock, and people had begun drifting in, all wearing their blue jeans. Elvis's cousin, Wayne Mann, came in. Some others were sitting around talking, keeping an eye on the entrance. Wayne sat down beside me. He was easygoing. He made me feel at ease. He was a genuine person. "Have you seen Elvis?" I said. Wayne nodded. "I sure did. He put a $50 bill in my hand. You know, I live down on Adams, right? Well, I was walking down Adams a little earlier this evening, and Elvis came driving by. He was going downtown for something, maybe Christmas shopping, or just getting out for a little while. Anyway, he saw me and pulled over to the side of the street. He rolled down the window and he said, 'Merry Christmas, buy yourself something.' And he held out a $50 bill. I didn't have a cent in my pocket, and wondering where I could scrape up enough to buy my folks something. Me, just 17 and no job. Then along comes Santa Claus in a big black Cadillac. 'Go buy yourself something with this.' That's the kind of thing sounds like I just made it up, but it didn't." He studied the $50 bill in his hand. "I'll sure take it home and give it to my mother." We sat there a little while longer, and then the phone rang. "He's ready to go," someone announced. Everybody headed out of the house to the long line of cars parked in front. Elvis came out in his blue jeans. He never wore them except for skating or the football field. He looked at all the people piling into all the different cars and he shook his head. "I'm going to buy a big pickup truck," he said. "Big enough to hold everyone in the back.
For everybody. For all of us.
That way we can all be together instead of running around in a lot of different separate cars." Frances, Heidi, and I stood there waiting, trying to look terribly unconcerned. Of course, each of us was dying to be the one Elvis would ask to ride up front with him in his big black limousine. He turned to us for a moment, opened the front door on the passenger side, and motioned to one of us to jump in. The others would ride in the back with Patsy, Elvis's double first cousin. and some other guys and girls who had come by that night. He looked at me, opened the door, and said, "Jump in, Arlene." I rode down the winding driveway in the front seat with Elvis Presley driving and me sitting there by him in blue jeans.